firstly, heartiest congratulations for this big win and the Shameless representing at the Cannes. How did it all happen? Tell me about that, Konstantin, first.
How did the festival happen, or how did the whole project happen, the whole
No,
film?
first tell me how did the festival happen, because about the project we'll discuss in detail.
Well, the film was selected. The film was selected for uncertain regard. The film was not fully finished, so we had to. Yes, we had to finish it very fast. Not fully finished. Basically, the sound mix remained, and as soon as I found out that it was selected, I had to go back to Paris and to finish the sound. So I saw it for the first time, finished sound and picture in Cannes, and for the first time with the audience as well.
Wow, wow. And we got to know that there was a thunderous response from the audience. As a filmmaker, how does that feel? Just to maybe being recognized this way?
For me, I mean, it's my second
Yes.
time with a film in Cannes, but this time was very different, and I would say very special. In the past, I always had struggled with watching my own films, especially I couldn't actually see them at all for years. With this film, it's different. I look forward to seeing it. The response at the premiere was extremely positive and emotional. So I mean, it sounds like a cliche, but it is a moment that I think I'll remember forever.
And that's so sweet.
Actually, throughout the screening, Anasuya and I was sitting next to Anasuya and Omar, and we were kind of giggling throughout because we knew what was happening behind the scenes, and we were reminded of these moments. And then everyone became quiet, and then at the end they started crying because they became very emotional. And I was hugging them, and I started crying. It was a bit of a bit melodramatic, but in a very good way.
Absolutely. Tell me about how the Shameless happened. How did you decide to make a film in India and with Indian actors? Tell us about the whole process.
Well, I mean, my connection to India goes back for over 20 years, but I wasn't planning to make a film there. I shot a video, like a 3-screen video piece in India in 2005, but I wasn't planning to follow up with any other work there. And I came across a book of short stories, William Dalrymple's 9 Lives, in my local bookstore in Brooklyn. And I got highly intrigued by some of the non-fictional characters in the book, and decided to. So this is what kind of initially put me on track with this project. My initial intention was to make a documentary out of the 4 of the stories. I actually researched 8 out of the 9. I couldn't actually get at the time to the Himalayas where the last story takes place because of the weather conditions, but I spent over 10,000 kilometers on the road and several months looking for characters with similar backgrounds, interviewing them, trying to find the characters for the documentary. And this was in 2012. In 2014, I started work on the first story, which is initial stages, and the central character of the story was Devadasi's ex-worker in northern Karnataka, with whom I had developed a rapport. And as the filming progressed, I was observing her interactions with one of her best friends, another sex worker from the area, roughly the same age. And there was such tenderness, and they were actually you could feel the emotional support that they were giving each other, and intimacy. I'm not implying it doesn't really matter whether there was sexual intimacy or not. I don't know, and it's irrelevant. But this is what started the sort of the fictional story of the Shameless, which doesn't really have anything in common with Nine Lives, except that it takes place against the background of sort of dedicated girls that sort of come from the tradition of the cult of Yalama. It's a tradition that was long outlawed, although it was not that long ago, actually. In the late 80s, Karnataka was the last state to outlaw the practice. But still, mothers continue to dedicate their prepubescent daughters and sort of condemning them to a life of prostitution. So that's the sort of the connection. The film itself is sort of an intense drama thriller with noir elements and a noir ending. And it's basically a love story nestled inside a crime story, almost like a Russian doll. Much of the younger character was strongly sort of informed by the biography of Reshma, the woman who was the central character of the documentary. And even some plot elements came from her life as well, obviously. And it took a very long time to finance. I mean, I face skepticism, vast skepticism in India for all the obvious reasons. Another European coming there to make another exotic story, which was completely sort of, my intentions were misunderstood. But until you can kind of prove something with results, it's hard to convince people. Anurag Kashyap was one of the few people that sort of was open to the idea and extremely helpful. And I initially stayed at his house in Mumbai, and he continued to sort of help me along with connections in the film world. I faced similar skepticism in Europe, but finally we financed it. The money came in very small chunks from various funds from 5 different countries. And we made it on a shoestring budget.
Wow.
So that's more the history of the project.
Absolutely. And tell me, how challenging was it to actually get the right actors? Because, of course, you not from India, of course, you want to cast good actors. Then there's budget crisis. Was that also a challenge to get the right faces?
Actually, it took a long time. It wasn't a big challenge for 2 reasons. One, I tend to trust my gut when it comes to the choice of actors. And 2, there is a vast pool of extremely talented actors who are outside the sort of Bollywood industry from all over India. Initially, I started working with an agency in Mumbai. The casting went on for almost 8 months. For me, that's nothing sort of unusual. It usually, as I mentioned, I take my time, and I just need to be convinced that I have the right actors. For the role of the protagonist Renuka, I had interest from some very well-known actresses in that age group, very well-known and also very talented and interesting. That I can ever make this film. That at some point I was considering making it as an animated film for adults, and this friend, actually a Bengali friend, suggested you should look at the drawings of a friend of mine, and that's how I started. That's how I befriended her on Facebook. And 2 years later, when I the idea for the animated film got struck down very quickly by the sales agent and producers, and they didn't want to make an animated film. So 2 years later, when I started casting for the film, there's something about her. So there was a certain charisma, a certain kind of attitude that I could see even on pictures on Facebook. I sent her a private message asking her if she wanted to try out for the lead in a film that I was preparing. She was extremely surprised. Took her 2 or 3 days to respond, and another month to actually send me like self tapes. And with Omara, who is the second lead in the film, she came through the agency in Mumbai. I probably saw over 200 actresses in that age group, and there was something even the first time I saw her pictures that kind of fitted the character. But she was just reminding me in Cannes that I tested her 7 times with with tapes and auditions, which I had forgotten. But so, and the rest of the cast, I mean, some I knew their work. For example, Tanmay Danani, I know his work. So with Mita Vashish, same with Rohit Kokate. I basically cast them based on their work directly. Roshika Day also came through the agency. So this is how the main cast came about. The secondary cast, we shot the film. We couldn't shoot it in India, so we shot the film in Nepal using Kathmandu as a shooting location because the film takes place in a fictional city. I even had to sort of rewrite it in order to fit the to fit the architecture and the layout of the city, because Kathmandu is very particular. So I rewrote the script right before we shot it.
Yeah, I read that you actually shot it during COVID, so that must have been a big challenge. All the more.
No, actually, we had to postpone the shooting twice because of COVID. We shot it after COVID, but
Okay.
if you have seen pictures with us with dust masks, it's because Kathmandu is perhaps one of the dustiest cities in the world. It is one of the dustiest cities that I've spent time in.
Yeah.
So it almost felt like it was during COVID.
And Konstantin, tell me, like, how did you kind of befriend Anurag? When did you guys meet, and how did this happen? Like,
I mean, with Anurag, he had a film in Cannes, Ugly, that premiered in the Directors Fortnight, and a friend introduced us. And I, like, literally 15 minutes later, when I mentioned to him that I was going to be in Mumbai a month later, he said, "Oh, just come and stay with me." He was preparing Velvet Bombay at the time.
Bombay Velvet, yes.
Bombay Velvet in Sri Lanka. And yeah, I mean, he's an extremely sort of generous guy, like, and also seeing what he has done for the younger filmmakers, and so that's how we met. Actually, he texted me like 2 minutes after the film was the press conference was still going on when they announced the selected films, and he like was texting me to congratulate me.
So sweet. But I think also it's so interesting. Of course, you're based in Berlin, you're shooting a film in India, you have a Indian director who's a friend. Do you think cinema has kind of blurred the boundaries that we all talk about? Art has kind of given that united all artists?
I think I don't know if that has happened, but I would be very happy if we continue to be more and more open to collaborating and to sharing stories, because stories is what unites us. I'm not that kind of stupid to like with this film. I didn't try to tell the story from the perspective of that an Indian film director would have, because I don't have that perspective. So I focused on the universal elements, because ultimately we're all the same. We fall in love the same way, we hurt the same way, as in our nature we're all the same. Yes, there are cultural differences, and nowadays with social media and with the internet and being connected like 24/7, I think these boundaries are like not as pronounced as for example they were in the past. Actually, in my opinion, the cell phone changed India. I mean, India 20 years ago in India now is vastly different, and one of the reasons is the cell phone and social. In India, if you're not on Instagram, you don't exist.
That's so true.
Not
And
just
how,
there, but it's okay.
yeah, and given you spent so much time in India, like how Indian do you feel personally?
No, I mean, I have never lived there. I have kind of visited, and from kind of from
Yeah.
the get-go, I developed friendships with writers, with filmmakers that I met, and that I stayed in touch. And I don't I don't know why. I don't know why there was this sort of common language, and these strong bonds developed.
Yeah.
So I mean, Basharat Peer is a close friend. He's a bit kind of like, yeah, I don't know if you know who he is. He was the editor for the New York Times for India
Yes.
for many years. He was like helped me tremendously through the entire process. Then proposed an assistant that it kind of didn't work out during the shoot. He's a bit upset with me, but hopefully he'll get over it. He's someone close, and we used to kind of like swap treatments or ideas for films or scripts. And another dear friend, unfortunately, he died during COVID. I'm like Ovik Sen, who was
Yes.
a very, very dear friend. Actually, we were planning to write a film together that all took
Wow.
place on his bed in his house in Kolkata. The last time I saw him, sadly, was here. He came to visit me in Berlin, but he passed away.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm from Calcutta. I've seen his work and just amazed by that. Yes.
Yeah, he was someone
Uh,
that I became quite close to. Again, we met and we just clicked.
Wow. Wow. And tell me, of course, Anasuya has been around for a few years, but the kind of recognition that she's getting after this win has been so special. What was her first words to you when her name was announced? Like, what did she feel like? And given the kind of recognition and fame that she's getting, how is she feeling about it?
I mean, she was over the moon with like being there and being in Cannes and there being there with the film, and we would just walk together down the street, and mostly like girls and women that had seen the film will stop her, hug her, some will cry to the point of kind of like a couple of times being quite uncomfortable. I remember this woman was kind of hugging her and crying, and we're the party. And now I'm constantly in touch with her. We also she's a bit overwhelmed, obviously, with all the attention, but extremely happy. We also have a similar sarcastic sense of humor, so we kind of joke among us, on WhatsApp. Um, Also, Omar is also an extremely talented and smart young actress. I'm sure with a bright future. I didn't although I like tested them first separately, I didn't confirm them until I tried them out in Mumbai with some of the more challenging scenes to just see their chemistry and how they worked with each other and interacted with each other. Yes, the Anasuya is super happy.
Yeah. And of course, it may be tagged bold in Indian perspective, but do you guys plan to release the Shameless anytime soon?
I mean, I very much hope so. Like earlier, because it will not be an easy film to release,
Absolutely.
but because there's a lot of also layers to it that the censors can find problematic, not just the censors around the homosexual relationship. But I was like texting earlier with Anasuya, and she was like, everything about this project has been like unexpected and odd, and it didn't happen the way it should have happened. So
Yeah.
next thing you know, we might have a release soon. I at least very much hope that the festivals will like the big festivals like Miami will not, at least they won't have an issue with some of the topics
Yeah,
that the film touches
right,
upon.
right. And Constantine, what I really found interesting was how you kind of filmed this in Hindi. Tell me about that experience, and was that
That
a big challenge for you?
that was a massive challenge, and actually the challenge of transitioning the dialogue initially from English to Hindi was a much bigger challenge that later on when we were shooting the film, because I tried to work with at least 5 or 6 different writers or translators, and somehow my original intention, my desire for the language to be removed a couple of degrees, to not to fall into the sort of Bollywood cliched dialogue, or the other extreme was this, to kind of use a regional vernacular that, unless you get it absolutely perfect, will look ridiculous. So since the film is not like a realistic social drama, I wanted the dialogue to reflect that. So the Hindi that we ended up using is not region specific, and actually the person that saved the day, as everything being unusual in this project, was the production and costume designer Parul Soon, with whom I had been working for like 2 years on the project already, because I work very closely usually with the DOP, with the editor, with the production designer. Even on the level of script we discuss, and I'm very, like, I work in a very collaborative way. So she would see what we were going through, and yet another person hadn't worked out, I would ask her to give me her opinion, and not just, I mean, Basharat Peer was one of the people that I would go to. I had a couple other people whose opinion I trusted to kind of, and then I had to triangulate and then form my own opinion, which is, it's insane. But so Parul stepped in. She's an aspiring writer-director herself, and translated 10 pages, and everyone said this is by far the best translation of the dialogue.
Wow.
So she ended up translating it. Then we workshopped. Also, for me, during the prep, I workshop every scene and then did table readings with the main cast. So we tweaked the dialogue there as well, because they try to explain to me every nuance if they change the word, because I wanted the dialogue to sit well with the way we imagine the characters. There was very little improvisation on set, because for a variety of reasons, we stuck to like 90% of the cases, we stuck to the written text. I also had an Indian script supervisor. I had a trilingual assistant. She's an ethnic Indian, but living in Nepal, so she spoke Hindi, Nepali, and English. So between the two of them being with me on set constantly and following the dialogue, I mean, all the actors except for some of the Nepali actors speak perfect English, so I directed in English. But if something sort of changed, they were alerting me on set. It was extremely challenging. I mean, I can read the delivery, the emotions. Once you see the film, you will but if something changes in terms of words, that these kind of subtleties, of course, I couldn't.
Absolutely. And in a time when we are all talking about how much the film collects at the box office, theatrical releases, how important or special is it to be kind of being nominated for the Uncertain Regard, something like that? Like, what does that mean to a filmmaker?
I mean, to me, there couldn't have been a better platform for the film to premiere and then go into the world. I think, yes, we were in the official selection, not in competition. Our film is not like a huge film, so it was exactly the right place to actually to premiere the film. So I couldn't be happier with that selection.
Right. But in retrospect, do you what do you think is a film requires to be selected for a film festival like that?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't know. And actually, with Cannes, as far as I know, that they don't even announce who the selectors are. So it's we submitted it because we didn't have money for post-production, let me put it this way. So the sound took forever. I mean, just 1 week now, like 1 week in, because the person that was doing the sound was pretty much working pro bono, putting in his time, and he runs a big studio. So if he has a gap, I flew to Paris to work for a week. So we submitted the film the last day, the last hour, the last minute, literally with a temp mix sound. So and since I didn't kind of anticipate the selection, I was like 2 days after we found out about a festival, I was actually preparing to go to New York for some work meetings and for some like personal stuff. So like obviously I canceled the trip and jumped back into it to finish the film.
And do you also watch Indian films, like any Hindi film that you watched, or Indian cinema, anything from the Indian cinema?
I've been following quite closely the sort of independent, what it used to be called in the past, like parallel cinema in India. And in the past 15 years or so, I think some sort of remarkable films were made, and I think more to come.
Yeah,
These are the films that I actually liked a lot. I really like. I'm really kind of bad with names, and actually 2 of these people are friends. I don't want to actually slaughter the way I'm pronouncing their names, but I liked a lot Killer. It's a Marathi film, Liars Dice, which was also produced by Jar. I really like Newton. And it's actually, we've been talking about remaking his first feature. Have you seen it?
Yes.
It's funny as hell. And I like Court a lot. I didn't see I actually tried to watch The Disciple, but I was like on my computer, tired. So well, I think it's a Netflix production. As I said, haven't seen it yet. I like Anurag films, perhaps Black Friday is my favorite. We watched it together. He hadn't seen it for 10 years. We watched it in his house. It was a very interesting experience. I really like that film.
Yes. Lastly, tell me, Konstantin, like, what's the future for you? Do you want to, like we spoke about, the independent cinema, as we popularly call it, is that the way ahead, or you also want to maybe enter the full-fledged commercial market someday?
I mean, I need to make a living, but still, and I never thought I was going to even contemplate making another Indian film, but I am talking with a writer about like a slow burn psychological thriller set in the Northeast. It's very, I don't want to mention names because it's very early days, but next thing you know, I might make another Indian film. This time, hopefully, like to shoot it in India and to work there. So, but I'm preparing a European film, a heist thriller it's an unusual story about the robbery of an art museum. Which we're supposed to be shooting more or less this time next year, or like April, May of next year.
Amazing. Great. I hope the next time we speak, I think we'll meet in Mumbai and speak about your film and see you shoot. Thank you so much. Thank you. It was such a pleasure speaking to you.